So the topic that we're going to get into today is justification, and we feel that it's a situation that a lot of people use, all of us use. But one thing that I know we were talking about earlier is about how people justify things, and I think that it's funny because, like you were saying, anybody can justify anything at any time.
Anything at all. You talk to murderers. Murderers will say, "Oh, why did you kill that person?" "Oh, well, he did this." To them, when they made that decision, it was completely just. It was the right thing to do. I mean, you could argue the same one. People who believe in not capital punishment, the death penalty, where because he killed someone, he deserves to die. That's your justification for it, but really the choice is yours. You can justify anything. That's my point. That's what we look for, and that's a really drastic example. But we do it every day with, why did you choose to wear a blue shirt? Oh, well, I wore a blue shirt because yesterday I wore a red shirt and I was wearing the same shirt as another person I work with. I want to make sure that I don't do that again. That's your justification for it, but really that choice is yours, regardless of what it is.
So let's get into the conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Like we were saying, it's just kind of funny that I noticed that too, but I noticed myself doing it a lot, and that's why it's interesting to bring this stuff up, because in trying to be a better person, one thing that I've learned is to do self-examination, because we're always looking at other people, you know what I mean? We're always like trying to justify the reason of us doing something is that somebody else's action led us to do what we did, but I don't know, I think that's kind of, I think it's wrong in my opinion, because it's like, how can I justify what I did based on someone else's action? That's taking the power away from me now. Now I'm admitting that, hey, this happened out of my lack of control and lack of power over the situation.
Mm-hmm.
What this other person did affected me to do this. And, I did that for a lot of years, and sometimes I find myself still doing it. I mean, that's why the self-improvement thing is a constant battle, right? But, I just noticed that, man, a lot. Where that happens a lot, and I really want to try to change that in myself. The difficulty is, though, when everybody else does that, or the majority of people you're around does that, it makes it tough, because then you kind of start getting back into that groove of thinking, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's hard. I mean, that's the tough thing. One of the things that I learned in psychology is that, like, your thought patterns and habits are like grooves.
Mm-hmm.
Like grooves on a record, or like, here's another case. I know, what is it, oxen. A lot of times they'll put oxen, they'll yoke them up, put yokes on them, and then they'll plow something, or they'll hook them up to a wheel that's grinding grain or something like that, right? And they get into a groove. That's like where the term came from.
Yeah, that's why you use that, like, oh, dude, I'm in the groove. I was just totally on track and everything's going. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, because it's like there's no resistance. You're in that groove. There's nothing in the way. It's already preset and it's just easy, right?
Uh-huh.
The bad thing about that, though, I shouldn't say that there's a bad thing about that, but the fact to think about with that is that that's possible in our habits and our thinking too, And with that being said, a groove is hard to get out of.
Right, especially if it's a deep groove. It kind of goes with the habit. The longer you've had a habit, the deeper the groove, and the harder it is to break free of that habit. But if you can, a lot of times, it's a good thing.
Right.
They always talk about having good habits and bad habits. So if you want to keep a good habit, you want to keep the groove going on that. But then even with a good habit, there may be a better way to do it than you need to do.
Groove is that it's good and bad, right? Like, sometimes people say when they're in a groove, like in sports or something, or at work, or things are happening and clicking, they're like, yeah, I was really in a groove, right? You never hear anybody say, like, oh man, I was in a groove, man. It's never that emotion to that word, but it's the same thing.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? When you're making bad choices, bad decisions, or thinking bad, or whatever the case is, consistently and habitually without you knowing it, that's a groove too. See what I'm saying? Like,
we just don't acknowledge that as a groove.
Right. And so maybe that's a way to look at it. Maybe, I don't know, because this is always going to be a work in progress. But to start to understand things differently, because we talk about this all the time, right? That there's a lot of words and a lot of sayings and a lot of vernacular in our lives that lead us emotionally to react to something.
Right. Like we were talking about goal. The word goal implies there's going to be an end.
Yeah, exactly. And there isn't. Like, if your goal is to be a better person, like, you're never going to reach that.
You will always be reaching it, but you'll never reach it.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's a little different.
Right. So, is that where, like, striving for a goal? Because you hear that too, right? Striving for a goal. I was striving for a goal, but then a goal is the end. But anyways, kind of getting off track. Back to justification. Is that you can, like, emotionally inside your own head justify anything, like you were saying, like murderers.
Yeah, murder can justify why they did it.
Even though everybody else is like, yeah, but you're a nutcase. You cut that person in little pieces and ate them. That's weird. Right?
Yeah.
But in that guy's mind space, whether it's right or wrong, see, that's the thing, right? That's where it gets convoluted, is people determining what's right or wrong.
Because right or wrong is such a subjective perspective.
Yeah.
And no one acts like it's a subjective perspective at all.
Right.
But it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I always like to, anytime someone talks about the majority always being right over the minority, I always like to bring up the example of the Earth being round.
Yeah.
Because in the olden days, everyone thought it was flat.
Majority, yeah.
The majority said it was flat, that was the fact, and this is the right answer, and you're crazy because you think it's round. And now, you'd laugh at someone if they said the Earth was flat, but that's just, we know that now.
Right.
But that used to be the belief at one point in time, and people would get ridiculed for it. That's the example I always like to throw out there. With just because the majority believes it, it doesn't mean it's actually true.
So how amazing is that what you just said, right? Because logic and science, right? And it's not always science. What I mean by maybe I shouldn't say science, because science is a label for it, but just logic and just sheer being able to understand what's going on, right? Just like logically perceiving what you see in front of your face. Back in the day, they're saying that the Earth was flat, right? And their emotions and feelings were so deep. They're like, no, it's flat.
Right.
And we'll kill you if you keep saying it's round. You know what I mean? Like, literally, we will murder you in front of everybody because you're messing up our shit. Basically, is what they're saying, right?
Right. And that's our justification for it.
Right. So, even though the sun would go down and come up, right? Even though they would look at the sun there and the moon would be here and it would switch places every single night and day, they'd still say it was flat because that was the emotional belief. See what I'm saying? Logic didn't override the emotion.
Well, the logic was different. That's the thing, is their logic was being justified by their emotions.
Right, but I'm just saying sheer logic of, like, if I smash my hand in a drawer, that's gonna hurt. No matter what my emotions say it's gonna be, it's gonna hurt.
Right, but you're looking at it from the already knowing thing. If you take it from that spot and everything you've learned is that if you put your hand in there, it doesn't hurt, and that's what you believe. That's what your logic becomes because that's what you've been taught this whole time.
Right, but see I'm glad you're saying it, but did you notice you said that's what you believe?
Right.
I'm talking about just what's there.
Okay, right.
Just the facts. Besides, see, that's the emotion. When you believe something, that's because that's what you feel. I'm saying, hey, remember, you say it all the time, right? You're like, well, yeah, you say that color's red. Maybe we call it red.
But it could be blue to
somebody else. You see what I'm saying now?
No,
so
I get that.
That's my point with everything. Is like, okay, I'm acknowledging that maybe somebody believes that. But I'm saying let's go above that. You know what I'm saying? Because like, you may believe at this level, you know, that this table is wood, okay? And you may believe that, right? And maybe that's a fact, maybe it's not. But I'm saying let's go up here and say, yep, it's wood, because it is. You know what I mean? And that's where I think that a lot of situations don't get resolved because people aren't able to say, okay, you know, like we did in an illustration, people aren't able to say, okay, here's my emotions and here's the facts. People aren't able to say, let me take this out.
Right, to really look
at this. To just look at what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's what I'm saying will help us become better, is being able to do that. And that's tough, that's practice. Like you have to practice that consciously because when the emotion is involved, that's subconscious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That just brings you there. And it's hard to control that unless you consciously are aware that that's what got you there.